I'm Isyander.
And I'm Koda.
And surprising literally nobody, and thanks heavily to Patreon, today we're going to be covering the Dark Mechanicum.
The Dark Mechanicum.
Yep, they won by kind of
the
pretty aggressive landslide on Patreon.
The tech guys, but evil. The tech guys, but we put a demon in it.
They're the tech guys, but evil, according to the Chief Operating Officer of Servitors Incorporated. So take that with a grain of salt. You know what I mean?
More evil.
You know, like let's remember here, the Mechanicus are the ones who decry them the loudest, and they have no labor laws.
The Mechanicus,
like Forge Worlds, are terrible.
Stock Mechanicus are the people who take an ice pick to replace it with like a Nokia phone, and then tell you to go stamp letters for like 10 years straight until you wake up and a single tear drops down your cheek as you start remembering what was done to you.
Yep. Every time the Dark Mechanicum are called heretics, heretics. Heretics is what they're called.
They couldn't help themselves.
I couldn't either. Every time they're called that, you got to remember the person saying that read this report from a printer that was crying. So just keep that in mind.
Silently weeping.
They sob loudly.
Do they?
Like, this is a problem that they have to fix every now and then, of servitors waking up and just kind of making everyone uncomfortable. Yeah. We covered this in the servitor episode.
Yeah, we did, but it's still jarring every time I learn or chat or literally interact with anything about the servitors.
Yep. And so that leaves us with two options, which are the Terminators and the Ecclesiarchy. So we're either going to church or we're going to get a pretty cool set of armor. That's it. That's all. Those are the two options, as always.
As always?
The choice is yours. I shouldn't say it like that. As always, the choice is yours. Don't sound off in the comments.
Don't get me started about Fleece Johnson.
May the most popular win. Or persistent, because persistency also works. I've been seeing some of the crusades. My favorite being week 28 of saying week 1, which is my favorite one. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I kind of want to do something with that. If you'd like more bonus episodes as well, you can join the almost custodies amount of people we have over on patreon.com/Isyander and Koda.
Almost custodies?
Yeah, we're shockingly close. And I should probably do something for that, but I don't know what, because everyone loved the patches, and there's a lot of people who are kind of bummed that they missed out on that. And I feel like...
How many custodies are there?
The 10,000.
Oh.
Yeah, right? Wow. Huh. Right?
Wow.
Right? Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? And so... I will do something, probably, maybe. A hoodie, maybe. Shirt, maybe. More patches, maybe, because people were fans of that. But first I want to figure that out because 10,000 anything is a lot.
That's a lot to ship out.
The logistics of that are something I want to
so
figure out.
much to ship out.
But if that's something you want, we can certainly make that happen. By going over there, you get access not only to the drops for stuff like that, bonus episodes that we upload there every single week, including stuff we cannot talk about, thanks to the omnissiah here, like the Death Corp, who just are kind of tough to cover. And I think the homunculi episode wound up there. Yeah.
Did it?
I swear it did.
I think it
because
might
there's
have.
no way we could have done it here.
No.
Somehow we got the homunculab episode here, though. And I'm kind of technically proud of that.
There's an overly detailed version of that video over on Patreon and a slightly sanitized version of that video for YouTube.
Yeah, you also get
which, considering the subject matter, is as sanitized as we can get it.
Yep. You also get access to episodes like this week's where we covered the Death Watch again because I was slightly wrong last week and they have gone against the Tau, and that was fun to go read about. And I found a very fun character from that. So that is very, very fun. There's over 100 of those. You also get access to the Discord and a bunch of other perks, all while helping us keep this show going without mentioning VPNs. So far, we're a couple years in and no VPN mentions. I'm not going to jinx it. Could happen. But so far, we are VPN free. Probably should get one, though.
This is the only shark you'll see surfing on our web.
For now, maybe. We'll see. For those of you signing up as we speak, thank you very much. And for those of you already there, thank you as well. Now, let's get into the mad scientists of 40k.
The
And I
mad-er scientists.
I
of
realize by
40K.
saying that, this doesn't narrow it down at all. There are so many of them. There are so many of them. If I have to do like a mad scientist tier list, they're not as bad as the homunculi.
Or that one guy who wears a leather trench coat of
Fabius Bile.
unknown material? Unknown. Suspicious material.
Yeah, a suspicious trench coat, Fabius Bile. They're not as bad as them, per se. There's still a lot. But the thing about the Dark Mechanicus, because I'll be honest, you see a lot of the Dark Mechanicus stuff, and spoiler for the episode, there's not a lot of it, sadly. So typically, they kind of get typecast as the Mechanicus, but we cram demons into things. They do that. But there's a lot more to them that's there to like, and when I was going through this, I actually found out that they've won the war on branding as far as I'm concerned, because their symbol's far cooler than the Mechanicus.
That it is.
That's far better than the Mechanicus.
Well, to be fair, it is kind of just the Mechanicus logo with the Chaos Undivided kind of just under it.
It's the same thing, but I prefer that one. I don't know why. It just looks good.
You like Chaos is what you're telling us. Heretic.
No. And there's also there's a strong case to be made that they should not have the traitor prefix, because technically speaking, they're just the Mechanicus.
Technically speaking, the Mechanicus isn't the Imperium. I see what case you're making here.
You'll see as we go forward. The start for them starts before the heresy, actually. I was going to start at the heresy, but then I was like, no. This starts a little bit, just a hair.
Really? Were they like first to go before? Did they uncover some strange knowledge in the search for STCs?
The seeds for them come before the heresy, and like a lot of things, it's Big E's fault. Like, I'm not going to lie. Have we covered what the omnissiah is?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
We covered it in the Mechanicus episode. Did we cover the fact that he like maybe suplexed the dragon and hid it under Mars?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
And that may or may not be the Emperor.
I love 40k so much. Basically.
And that dragon may or may not be the Void Dragon, the Catan?
Maybe. All we know is he went to Mars and fought that thing, burying it under Mars on purpose, because he had this great plan for the galaxy, and a big part of that was having an IT department. And the best way to ensure that is to take an eldritch abomination and confine it within a planet and let its waking dreams affect everyone who lives there.
Okay.
That's why they're the way that they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything the Mechanicus does is the machinations of this weird tech demon's dreams.
It's so cool.
Okay.
I love 40k is the only setting where you can go Space Jesus suplex to giant green dragon, and that's how we got our IT department. And that is a logical, consistent string of events that is compelling critically.
Yup.
Because it all ties into everything.
You walk up to someone random on the street and first off they go, "Who the hell are you? Why did you stop me?" And then
yeah.
And then they're like, "Can I at least hear about this book you're describing to me before I run away?"
Exactly. And so that's kind of like the root of how they got as they are, because as you can imagine, you take something beyond comprehension and just leave it under there, leaking out into the collective consciousness. And that's it's going to do a lot of damage to the psyche.
The psyche.
I'm summarizing a lot because the omnissiah is a complex topic that requires its own episode, because it fully enters the realm of but it's very close to the Holy Trinity in a way in 40k,
where they're all three the same thing but also different distinct individuals as well.
And untangling the full breadth of that is kind of irrelevant for this episode. All you need to know is Big E started it. It's true, he did. And so he came. Now the people had settled. They became the beginnings of the Mechanicus, the Mechanicum, right? And he found them and was like, "Oh my God, you are so good at all of this, and I am the incarnation of what you have been worshipping." You know, the whole Big E parlor trick thing that I conveniently didn't bury under there. Don't go digging. And so he convinces them that he is the omnissiah that they have been affected by, and that
he's like a one-man Illuminati.
He definitely remember the iceberg episode where the Illuminati's just a thing that maybe is involved with him. Yeah, obviously he's a one-man Illuminati.
Yeah,
look at him. And so he goes on and he convinces them that he's the omnissiah. Now, critically, there are people who don't buy this song and dance. He does have a halo above his head, and his sword is on fire. They don't say that out loud.
Well, that's not technological. We've been having technology. That's obviously spiritual. Listen, I'm not going to speak on whether or not God is real or not. Obviously, you're with him. But, like, you're not ours? I was expecting more, like, weird circuit holographics and maybe, I don't know, holographic armor on you. Or, I don't know.
It's so easy to say that until you read some of the descriptions of... Like, in some of the books, this is my favorite trope in 40k, right? When you're reading about some jobber somewhere, and you can tell the emperor walked nearby. Because they will describe either like a sickening feeling taking over them, smelling ozone in the air suddenly, or like, I think the meanest one I've seen is just dry eye. just dry eye. And a deeply, whatever is that, very affecting to everything around him.
You know that weird, like, fuzzy film grain haze that
like when radiation
hits a camera?
Oh, he certainly puts that out.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, for goodness sake, right now, Big E is, spoilers, interred on a throne and dying. Very
spoilers.
I love spoilers for that because it's like you look up 40k and like the first thing you see is the golden throne and that skeleton barely alive on it. It's a very cool set piece. It also passively can blacken armor, so it's not pleasant to be around and definitely raises cancer rates. I'm positive of that.
Even I was reading this one. You remember the fun fact I told you about like how custodians purposefully color match their armor to their weapons? That's where I learned that fun fact, because the ones closest to the door are just like, my armor is changing color. It needs a retreatment.
Yep, this is just happening because I'm serving near the emperor, and the custodians, again, functionally perfect, still can't pull like consecutive shifts in there.
No,
it's deeply taxing on them. So it's easy for us to say like, oh, well, I would just stand up to him. But like, no, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
You certainly wouldn't.
You'd see that.
You smell like ozone and my eyes look like I'm staring into Chernobyl. I'm
good. I'm just going to do what you say before I die a horrible and painful death.
Yes. And so that is how the Mechanicus is brought into the fold. Mechanicum at the time. It's a whole thing. I will keep interchanging them.
They're like a separate entity, but not at the same time. But like they're also distinct individuals. But
it's very.
It's like the USSR. It's like a satellite state.
It's complicated. What matters is that they're brought into the fold, and the emperor decides to have kids. 20 of them, all boys. They get scattered into the wind.
It gets a bit rowdy first because I mean, have you seen a household that's all boys and many of them?
Oh, they just all got taken. We never even got to that point.
My extended family, one of my extended family members has a family of like 5 boys, and let me just tell you, the monthly concussions. Imagine what the Primarchs were up to.
Oh, they're weekly concussions and a couple fatalities easily. Thankfully, they were scattered to the winds. They're all brought back together. They're all brought back to Earth. And then one of them gets real mad that he didn't inherit Dad's jawline, Dad's voice, or Dad's hairline, because somehow those are fit to go to Lorgar and Kurz. So, an understandable reason to be mad. I like to imagine Horus looks like his mom, mostly because have you seen the one image of Horus smiling? Throw a wig on that. You know the exact image, right?
No, I don't.
You haven't seen Horus smiling?
No.
Hold on there.
That?
Throw a wig on that.
Throw a wig on that?
Throw a wig on that.
And that's...
I imagine that's what their mom looks like. Doesn't, but you know. Very, very good reason to be upset. And so he decides to have a whole heresy about it. And he's going to sell his soul and murder the universe because Dad didn't hug me enough. We're skimming through a lot of the heresy here, as you can tell. Now,
this is the overly simplified version.
True. He is a tactician. He is very smart. And wars are won with production. Mars is directly to the left of Earth, and it's very productive. So he needs to deal with that before he does the full mask off traitor routine. So he shows up to Mars, and he starts bargaining with them.
Bargaining what?
Well, first he starts with a typical, like, well, I mean, come on, you guys are all really smart. You know he's not the omnissiah, right? To which some of them are like,
You
I wouldn't say that, but I've had my
don't know if you can
suspicions.
say that.
You know? And then from there, he confirms some of their fears, because he's very adept with people, even if they are mostly steel at this point, and shows up with things that they love.
Like STCs, toasters, and slightly more metal.
STCs, you got it in the first one.
Oh.
It's STCs.
Nothing about the last two?
Yeah, those come later.
Okay.
Those come later. So he shows up with a bunch of STCs because he had gone traitor, and he discovered this whole faction of very, very advanced people. And he like asked them effectively, hey, how'd you guys crack all this technology? You're basically living in the future. And they're like, oh, we found these STCs. Bam, shot. The moment STC was said, bam, shot, all of them killed, every single one taken away. And like in the report said, tried to kill me with a knife. Doesn't matter that he's like over 10 feet tall.
They hit the South Park, he's coming right for us bit.
Yep. And so he gathered all those STCs and came over to Mars with them, and that's a great start. That's a great start for them. And you gotta remember, this is Daddy's favorite kid. Him going to Mars isn't the wildest thing. Him going to Mars with STCs is certainly not that wild. This is already very good for them. But the thing that really cinches it is when he promises them that he will unlock a vault that the Emperor himself said can never be opened.
He wants to show them that weird dragon in the basement. How would he know about that?
You'd think that. You would think that. And for any other faction, you'd be correct. That's the only creepy thing they'd keep in the basement. Certainly, right? Nope. This is the Mechanicus, and so there's a guy named Moravec. And his whole thing is just... he's pushing for the singularity. He's pro-singularity. And he wants to get there as fast as possible.
They did the singularity. Doesn't he know that's hyper illegal?
The Mechanicus is for progress and scientific research. They are the reason. You're in college for engineering right now, right?
Yeah, correct.
Have you gotten the like ethics classes every 5 seconds?
Yeah, well, it's at the beginning.
Okay, you will keep seeing them.
Yeah,
you will keep seeing them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, this is why.
Mm-hmm.
This is why, to avoid this,
Mm-hmm.
so you can think and not do this. They don't have any ethics classes here. Sure, it went wrong the last time, but I'll certainly do it better this time. And so he's going for it. Understandably, everyone around him goes, that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
We've already done the singularity once. We had a whole war over it and a dark age of technology.
Funnily enough, it's the techno-barbarians who are not a fan of this at all. The rest of the mech guys are fully on board with this. I'm not going to lie, because he's kind of getting results. And he's actually so effective that he starts a whole brotherhood for the singularity, which... Come on, that's pretty good. And so they start putting out technology more advanced than most people had ever seen in the purpose of getting to the singularity as fast as possible. And did that computer just grow horns and scream? Can you guess how he was making all this progress?
Demons.
It's demons.
Demons.
It's just said that he's bargaining with Chaos generic. But we now have Vashtor running around, which we did an episode on him a couple weeks ago.
So maybe it was baby Vashtor just like aiding and abetting this activity?
This was written before Vashtor. So as of now, that was not him. This was just general chaos. However, if they keep wanting to make Vashtor a thing, that's going to be retconned.
That has to be Vashtor.
It's going to be retconned. It's such a quick and clean one that they could very easily do.
Even if they don't acknowledge it's Vashtor in my brain. Like maybe a smaller, like less powerful version of Vashtor. He hasn't had as much like worship.
But as far as the canon goes, that is not him. As far as we know, honestly.
As far as my canon goes, it is.
And so the Techno-Barbarians, that has always been my favorite thing in all of 40k.
Techno-Barbarians.
Because I just think of Techno-Viking, but like, you know, all steel with one like red eye. Just Judge Dredd doing that dance effectively. That's it. And so the cult's broken up and chased off of Earth, and they lose a bunch of their technology and go to Mars to rebuild it. You know the Mars where there's a dragon?
Yup.
Hidden right behind it. And these are some of the seeds for the Mechanicus. And so do you see why I'm saying these guys are kind of the real Mechanicum?
Yeah.
And so they kept working on it, and this is their roots. This is what they started with. So you can kind of see how this is the bones of them. And they all kind of stashed it away in a vault named after the guy, Moravec. And when Big E showed up, he was like, that's very cool. That's very neat. Never open that.
Don't open that door.
Never, ever open that vault, or I will kill you. I will kill you all. I am not joking. Psychic fire upon all of you.
I will simply get you.
Yep. And he specifically forbade them from innovating any further than that. You've already gone far enough. Stop it. Seal it all in that vault. Put it all away. And never go in there.
How are we supposed to seal it into the vault if we can't go in there?
Just seal it. Stop asking questions.
Can we at least have like a weird like mail slot to stick the redacted technology into?
No, you don't get that.
A shame.
And so Horus shows up and says, I'll let you open that vault. Which the higher ups in Mars are like, okay, now we're talking. And the final thing that really gets pretty much everyone on board. If I win, I promise you can innovate as much as you want.
Just taking the locks off.
Yep. So not only do you get in there, not only do you get all these STCs, but you get to do what you're actually supposed to be doing right now, instead of being shackled by that guy pretending to be your god. He makes a very compelling case. And he makes his case to the higher ups at Mars, and this is the reason they were mostly not present during the heresy. Like, this is one of the best things he did.
They were on board with Horus until...
He caused, it's called like the... Have we covered the Schism of Mars?
No.
Okay. It's called the Schism of Mars. We're going to fly past that too.
We've wandered... Okay, I thought I was like... I've been able to speak on things that we've spoken on before and have a breadth of knowledge of the topics we're talking about.
I told you. We got years left of
this. This is... Oh, I am back in deep water again, and I've lost my flippers, my air tank. I don't even have like the funky vest that lets you go buoyant.
Yep.
I'm like, where are we?
Yep, we're at the Schism of Mars. What you need to know is it's effectively a Martian civil war. That's all that's happening, and it really bogs down the entire planet. So nobody really gets the advantage of the Mechanicus because they're too busy turning Mars into a death world.
Yeah, they're having a schism.
Yeah, they're having a schism. While this schism is happening, they do open the vaults. And within the vaults, something known as scrap code lies within.
Scrap code?
Now you hear that, you're like, oh, well, this is just garbage that prints zeros, right? It is not that at all. It's like, it's a demon virus. It's just a demon virus.
Oh, cool.
That's the best way I can describe it.
It's not scrap code as in the code that's scrap. It's scrap code as in it's the code that's going to scrap you.
Yes. So it's a combination of a computer virus. It's like if a computer virus actually had a demon in it too. It's not a good thing when you consider most Martians look like him.
Yeah, they have a lot of tech in their skull.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of magos? Magi. A lot of magi.
That's a different thing. That can't be argued.
The plural of magos. A bunch of them get possessed by this thing. Some of them are willing. They're like, oh my goodness, thank goodness, the real knowledge has come for me. Others are like, get that. Where's Norton?
Put that away.
Where is Norton? Put that away right now. And so you have...
I'd even turn for a McAfee at this point.
Yeah, and so now you have huge swaths of Mars that are either hacked or possessed, and it is making everything screw up. Your reactors are blowing up left, right, and center. That tank just screw horns, and we're not going to do with that. Did the floor bleed for a second there, or was I dreaming it? Like, it's a very terrible thing on top of a very terrible time. And it will just render this planet mostly useless.
As they work out these bugs and issues.
Yep. During this time, the guys who side with Horus, who are for this chaos, use it to their advantage and get everybody who's loyalist, pretty much. They win this. And they take over Mars for a good second there. Critically, they don't do much because they just cordoned off Mars. Like, while all this is happening, the whole heresy's still happening, and the Emperor said, put a pin in that. Put a pin in that.
I
Side
have
with
bigger
guns.
problems. Somehow I have bigger problems.
Yep.
Just make sure they don't expand from there.
Yep. And so they're just like, keep that problem there. And this is probably the single worst thing that has ever happened to the Mech Boys. Period.
You say schism?
Yeah. I mean, these are the people
I'm
who
getting the
field
picture.
knights and titans.
Yeah.
And there's scrap code running amok. And you can imagine what the cause of that, or what the effect.
The effect of that is
yes,
broad-reaching and awful.
And the Emperor, despite having 20-ish super sons, decided we're going to put a pin in that because none of you can deal with that for now. And ideally, post heresy, he was going to go and deal with that himself. For obvious reasons, he's not able to do that because he kind of lost and won at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so his sons wind up back there doing the scouring, which is the... Have we never covered the scouring?
They have to deal with that after picking up the pieces of the win-loss that is...
Mm-hmm. Huh. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the equivalent of a massive civil war happening, and randomly every Amazon warehouse is like having a bloodbath happening within it. I'm gonna deal with that later. Put a pin in it. No Prime this Christmas.
They had to put their dad in a chair and then immediately go over to sort out Mars.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
I can see why some of them have gone on a retreat to just like recover.
You see why some of the Primarchs, I'm done. This is traumatic. Mm-hmm. Give me 1,000 years. Give me 10 of them. And so during the scouring, what do you think they do to the people on Mars?
Scour.
Yep, that is precisely right. And they retake Mars, and they run every single version of the Mechanicus that is loyal to these guys that took over into the Eye of Terror. And these are the bones of the Dark Mechanicus, who call themselves the New Mechanicum.
Because now they're individual again. They're by themselves, no longer attached to the Imperium, but still Mechanicus.
Funnily enough, the Fabricator General who caused all of this is still probably alive, because we don't know what happened to him.
It's a long time for...
Number one.
He's obviously gotten rid of the rest of the flesh that he has.
This is him. He didn't have much to begin with.
Hey, fair enough.
You know? He also spent one of the last things we see him do is trying to find out what exactly the Dark King is. You know, do you remember that from the Warp B-listers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he became obsessed with it and wants to figure out what it is, because that is the true omnissiah, and he's working on it, and he's working on it, and he's working on it, and finally all this data hits him at once, and it basically says it was Big E forehead. And that infuriates.
That had to have been like a slap in the face.
Yep.
I worked so hard to figure out that the truth that we thought was a lie was actually the truth.
Yep.
And then just screaming.
Could be alive, could be dead. We don't know where he is. That's it. That's how that ended, and that is how we got the Dark Mechanicum. That is their bones. That is how they're so effective, frankly, because it's not just jobbers from Mars. These are the high-ranking people of that time who've now gone into the warp and obviously stopped aging or age weird now. I mean, their heads, they are the real Mechanicus.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanicum. They have not broken their original oaths, and they are the ones actually pursuing the original vision of learning at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of all of them, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
they might be.
Do they deserve the traitor prefix?
They're not necessarily traitor, but definitely the dark prefix. I would still, considering they're going and doing chaos stuff.
Well, they still need to go to work. They have lights to. They have electricity bills to pay. They got to work for somebody.
I have night vision goggles. Why do I need to flip the light switch? It is easier to go night vision time, and then my eyes move lenses around to make me see in night.
Well, they kind of don't have any friends, so they have to make weapons for everybody. And so this is how Chaos fields their Titans and their Knights, and where their bolter ammo comes from. It's these guys. They do for... It's very obvious, really. It's the frowny face equivalent of the Mechanicus. It was already really frowny face. You know what I mean? It's the evil... You know, like in old cartoons when like the mustache twirling evil variant would show up?
Mm-hmm.
That's what these guys are. They wear black instead of red. So they're kind of super edgy. And
They're the edge Mechanicum.
they have a good reason when they're asked, why don't you wear red? And they're like, well, red is the color of Mars, and we wear black to forget that. It is the color of void and ignorance. And the person's just like, okay, yeah, but like you are trying to be illuminated and all that, so shouldn't you not wear the color of ignorance and instead wear white for like illumination and all that?
They could have gone with the easier and less edgy version of red is the color of Mars and the Mechanicum from Mars wear that, but we are void-born, so we wear black.
They came up with a better reason. G-Dub has good writers because he says we will wear white when our task is done and all is known.
That goes hard. That goes hard.
Right. Like, at first you're like, oh, you edgy. And then you hear that, you're like, oh, okay.
You saved it.
Okay,
you saved it in the last part.
You stuck the landing. And so nowadays, while they're working on earning their white robes, they are just kind of trying to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible, no matter the cost. That does mean, occasionally, they cram demons into cars to see what happens. Nobody else does that. Nobody else knows what happens. They do. That's learning.
The Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport is the fastest sedan in
It's certainly not a sedan.
Not a sedan.
Certainly not a sedan.
No. What is
the fastest car?
The fastest production vehicle.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to get
Gasoline production vehicle.
Fastest gasoline production vehicle. Well, hold on. Isn't the top speed still higher than the
Tesla? It's tied
Tesla?
with the Model S Plaid and the quarter mile, but in top speed.
Anyway, we wanted to make it faster, so we put a demon in the engine.
Yep.
It was not fast enough.
It's the Dodge approach. Hence the demon. They'd work in... Yeah. They...
no replacement for demon's placement?
They call the Emperor the false omnissiah. They hate him. They think that the real omnissiah is within the forces of chaos. And you see someone like Vashtor, you kind of get it.
Yeah.
You know? And they are mostly just churning out so many Daemon Engines and so many Chaos Titans and Chaos Knights. And you see, Chaos has a variant of every single weapon in the Imperium fields for the most part. This is what they're doing all the time. This is their
making those things.
This is their full-time job. And the thing about Daemon Engines that's they're very funny because they're different from traditional tanks and land vehicles, because it is effectively, what if we made an M1 Abrams that could both sweat and scream?
Cool.
Does that make it any better at its job, you might be thinking?
No, but it definitely sweats and screams now.
Maybe. We don't know. Nobody's had a sweaty tank before, but now we do. And
obviously, you've never seen the cramped quarters of a tank. I'm sure it gets sweaty in there.
Yeah, but they don't radiate contempt. These things do that. Like, you must understand, they hate this. Being near a demon is already not that fun. Being around a demon engine is really not fun.
Contempt.
Yeah, and you can cram different demons from different chaos gods in there. So like you can have a Nurgle one. You can imagine that.
I don't want to, frankly.
It's definitely the sweatiest of all the tanks.
Yeah, I can.
The Khorne one probably still has biceps because
Okay, that would make a tank better.
Right? Biceps make any tank better. And they are...
What would a Slaneshi tank look like?
We certainly can't cover that.
Oh, no! Oh, there's an image in my head. There's an image in my head that I don't know is necessarily safe for YouTube.
What is the image?
All I will say is there is a headline from a couple years ago about something happening at a bachelor party, causing an injury to someone's eye. An object went boom out of an orifice.
Sure, why not? That's what those tanks are doing. This is what they actually look like.
That's what I can imagine a Slaneshi tank.
Yeah, they don't do that. They look like this. It's still demons, but they put out horrific levels of black smoke. You derive far too much joy from that. You derive far too much joy from that. They kind of share the same thing that Chaos Knights and Titans do, where
put skulls, bones, and smoke on it, and it's demonic now.
The only difference is like these things are pure demon piloted. Like that. Where's a man gonna fit in that?
Yeah,
you know. Whereas the Titans actually
need a pilot still.
They do, in some cases. Some are still piloted by. Sometimes the pilot just passed, and so there's a demon walking around in there, which not great. Definitely not great. And other times it's the traditional setup, but far more horrific because obviously,
they're like wired into the machine instead of having the free will to walk about the cabin.
As with everything after the heresy, half was taken, like a very messy divorce. So half the Titan Legions went, half the Knights went, and half the Mechanicus went. And so they do genuinely have a shocking amount of these things. Like a concerning enough amount that like there is a Titan for every Chaos God. And so you have like the Nurgle ones, which are always the coolest looking, or the Khorne ones, which are exactly what you think they look like, or the Sineshi ones that probably just have nipple rings, you know? Like, there's one, and the Tzeentch ones, which are a actual labyrinth within, probably.
And have maybe at least one tentacle.
Probably. I'd say, like, at minimum, a swirling pattern that is moderately difficult to look at for long periods of time.
Yeah. They have the plot of Uzumaki happening on that Titan.
Yep. Also, anytime you see Chaos fielding a particularly foul weapon, probably came from them. For example, you know those guitars the Noise Marines use to liquefy people?
Yes.
Who do you think did the R&D for that?
Obviously the Mechanicum.
Right. They're also the guys who are the majority shareholder of the Demonculaba. I mean, we covered this in the episode.
Yep, it's just the image popped back into my head.
Yep. You can thank me later.
Sure.
They've also worked on do you remember the Obliterator virus? It's that thing that we'll cover it more when we cover what all the things they've done, because they've created so many things, but it is horrific. It's horrific.
Well, its name is the Obliterator virus, so...
what I will say is it has been used to weaponize Tyranids. So do with that information as you will. They are also working on like their own bootleg version of biotransference, which is its own thing. They needed a beam with really high tensile strength for their Titan factory, and so the solution is they just stole a continent's worth of people and used that muscle fiber. Yep, that's the stuff they get up to.
That materials analysis. Please.
Well, I think they needed like a cable, something with really high tensile strength.
That can't be that can't be the best solution to that problem.
Well, most material scientists don't work in hell forges. So
fair point.
If any of you would classify your workplace as a hell forge,
please speak on this matter.
Please speak on whether you could use a continent's worth of muscle fiber for like probably cables.
And if that would be better than the galvanized steel that we use for most things.
Yeah.
I cannot see a world where the Golden Gate Bridge is golden because it's made of muscle instead of...
It could flex.
So can the Golden Gate... Have you seen Gallop and Gertie? These bridges can dance if you make them.
You could like walk up with like salt and just really mess up everyone's day. You know what I mean?
You get a section of this cable to contract hard enough that it just pulls both connection points inward.
You could just walk in with some salt or like a car battery and really change everyone's commute.
Again, this cannot be the best solution for this problem.
They're never the best solution for the problem. They just do it.
They're optimizing for like pain and suffering instead of...
They are, again, here's the thing. The Mechanicus will never learn. They will never find out if you can make a cable out of muscles. They don't know that. Because that's never been done before. But these guys, they know you can. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but they know it. They are...
Sure.
And so these Hellforges are very similar to Vashtor's factories, honestly. It's exactly what you think. It's Mechanicus factories.
Yeah. A lot of fire everywhere, open furnaces for people to... Osho would have a field day writing these people up.
Yeah, I think the game would be finding a single compliant thing in these factories, because everything's non-compliant. So
It's not what's compliant. It's not what's not compliant. It's what is compliant.
Yep, and these things are set up on demon worlds too. So there's just
that
demons
right there is just an OSHA violation in and of itself.
Well, yeah, and then you also remember like the Daemon Engines plop out of the factory lines and then just roam the factory, slaughtering things in mass. Yeah, that's a thing. Imagine if like at the end of like a gigafactory, we're gonna calibrate FSD. How? We're just gonna turn the car on, dodge. That's effectively what they're doing. We're just gonna calibrate this. We're gonna turn it on. Hopefully, you can dodge 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. I have faith in you. I have so much faith in you. I have no idea how they accomplish anything with these kinds of work situations. Like these planets are so, sometimes they're well set up with like the factory spitting the demon engines out into the outside world, so it's an outside world problem.
They have like pens out for them,
right? But then sometimes demon worlds can have demon world weather and demon world seismic activity, which means a volcano erupted and a actual tsunami of these things rolled into the factory. Yep. It's so bad. It's so bad. They tend to be exactly where you think they're going to be, deep in the Eye of Terror.
I would love to see the Glassdoor ratings.
You don't live long enough to leave one. Let's just start there. Because to leave one, that means you got off your shift, which, by the way, you clocked in at 8, and somehow it's 1942. So...
Listen,
warp time.
Your schedule said it was 8 o'clock on Friday. It's 50 years prior to that. You have 50 years of labor to work.
Yep, you have 50 years to work. Get to it. So you will not live long enough to leave a Glassdoor review.
You have a computer in your head because obviously you're a member of the Mechanicum, and you start trying to draft it by dictating it inside your skull, and immediately you get hit by like something.
Actually, I was slightly wrong. It wasn't a demon world that had the tsunami of demon engines. It was a relatively normal world that just happened to.
Oh, cool. I wonder what happens on the demon worlds.
That was just a normal world. All of them came pouring out. Everyone was dragged into the underground for the Dark Mechanicum. That was just a thing that happened. Typically, you see them deep in the warp or right around the Eye of Terror. But apparently, they could be in your walls.
The mole people are here, and they're making demon engines.
Yep. They've also been seen around small warp rifts here and there.
Of course.
That huge line. They're all over the place there.
Yep.
They are near the screaming vortex, which obviously they'd be near that. We haven't covered that. We won't cover that. And the
the Hadex probably anomaly is exactly what it sounds like.
Yep. And they tend to be. As I'm describing this, I'm realizing it's just a Dark Mechanicus. It's just a Mechanicus factory with demons in it.
With demons running around.
I was going to say they tend to be ecologically horrible for the planet, but so do the Admechs.
That's just the Admech, so
it's the same stuff, but there's now demons running around.
It has a...
They have no ground to stand on.
It's got a Chaos Undivided logo on it.
They have no ground to stand on when they're mocking the Dark Mechanicum. They should be their own faction, I'm not going to lie. Like, come on here. There's a difference because it's more warpy. There's no real sense of a layout either.
It's just a maze.
Yeah, it's just kind of a maze. There's no real logical pattern. You walk, like the Scooby-Doo bit where they run through one door, come out this door. Like that can happen.
You try to sneak a single bathroom break, and you think you've walked into the bathroom, but actually it's the copier room. And now, like, Greg from accounting is looking at you like, weren't you supposed to be on the assembly line? Why are you here?
Yep.
And immediately a demon takes you away, and you are now underground.
They obviously modify the planets they're on. I was going to say with new flora and fauna, but demons mostly. Possessed sunflowers every now and then.
Demonic flora and fauna.
Yep. And they take so many prisoners. So many prisoners. These factories are not worked by demons for the most part. So they kind of take up the approach of the Dark Eldar, where they show up, kidnap a planet, and just leave.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't like that implication.
Oh, it's terrible.
Don't like that implication.
So you don't even get to clock in. You just Nope, you've been taken. Bye-bye.
You're now clocked in, and you will never clock out.
Forcibly clocked in. They also get fun little like robe. I want them to be their own faction because I'd love to see Mechanicus with like different heraldry from the different chaos gods. That'd be very fun to see.
All of the weird like tertiary arm and mechanical tentacles replaced with normal
like
tentacles under Tzeentch.
I'd love to see a Dark Mechanicus guy who's just like the flesh is weakness, but I worship Nurgle. I'd love to see what that looks like.
All of the tentacle arms are replaced with tongues.
Maybe, possibly. But yes, so they just show up to planets, take the entire population, and they use them to advance science.
I'll be fair, they're using the scientific method, because that is proper. It's just...
Is it the scientific method?
Yeah.
You know, like, yes.
Yeah, you were asking a question, can this work? And then developing something to test how that works.
But this feels more like war crime science, where it's like you have discovered the freezing point of like an infant, you know? Which is just a thing that happened in World War II. And I'm like, you took notes? We didn't need to know that. We were never going to do that anyway.
I feel like you probably could have...
We could have guessed, honestly. We could have guessed.
You could have made an educated guess and figured out...
Don't leave it below 30. F. That's a safe one. That's a safe one.
Sure.
I think that's a sufficient rule. We don't need the hard number. But because war crime science, we do. So that's why I'm like, I don't want to call that the scientific method, because I feel like
it's
part of the scientific method is an ethics board.
Asking a reasonable question, not asking any question and developing a experiment to figure out if it works.
Exactly.
Asking a reasonable one.
Like
okay, I'll give you that.
There's a fine line between like the Mythbusters. What'll happen if we hit a approximation of a human being with a cannonball? You know? That I'm like, okay, I'm aboard for this. Now, you start putting real people in that situation, I'm like,
ooh.
That's what
Can we get an ethics committee on this show, please?
I will be fair. These guys are probably more accurate because they're using the actual thing. However, do we need that accuracy?
No. No.
Yeah.
See, but if I don't use an accurate model, I won't figure out that this cannonball will direct a rib cage fragment directly into that guy's spleen.
We wouldn't have known that. We certainly wouldn't have known that. They also arm demon princes and like minor to major demons too. They do a lot of standard issue arming. The big complaint I have about them though is there's just not that much about them.
Yeah.
There are some things that are so interesting here, like the true pursuit of knowledge and the fact that they consider themselves ignorant. There's a real humility there, tempered with some of the ones who are using people to like cable bridges. You know,
I guess it's a demonstration of that ignorance right there.
There's a very real variant of horror they represent, because you really don't want to bump into these guys ever, you know. And I my one complaint about them is I want more. The stage has been set for them. I was honestly, I won't lie, I was fully expecting them to come in like a little bit after Vashtor, because he so obviously reeks of them. Mm-hmm. For goodness sakes, one of the first times we see him is a bunch of Dark Mechanicus priests getting sacrificed. Well, they didn't know they were about to be sacrificed, but they did. And he shows up. I really expected more to come out about them, and kind of haven't. And I won't lie, that's a gulf that should be filled. There is something interesting here about the Mechanicum meeting the true Mechanicus, as they call themselves, and seeing what that would entail. You could have the old Fabricator General still alive somehow because warp stuff, meeting with the current movers and shakers, you know? Mm-hmm. You could easily have some of members of the Dark Mechanicum interacting with like a call and going, hey, you're kind of like us, and him going, that's concerning. That's concerning. That's good to know. Good to know. I will be a little bit more careful.
Or them looking at like Call's weird like not AI and going, you're allowed to do that, and him going, allowed.
Or like in the weird not Primarch thing he's made, but like there's a lot that he's done. These guys, that is a thing I want. I want them so badly to get more. And I really, really desperately hope they get more, because like a lot of the stuff is just kind of, it's left up to your imagination, you know? Like we know they occasionally just turn people into weapons. Like full bore, you know, just like, what would you do to me? You took both hands and replaced them with guns. Okay. But like, we don't know more than that, other than they're called like weapon slaves. That's it. That's all. And I would love to find out more about this. At the same time, kind of not.
Maybe the horrors of what they really do are kept in like some secret G-dub Google Doc, because revealing everything they do would be catastrophic.
Yeah. But what do you think of the Dark?
I like the Mechanicum stock, just because, I don't know, weird cyborg robot people doing weird mechanical science, but also at the same time, it just seems very, exactly what you said. It seems like we don't hear enough of, because there's a real like quandary that can be had there of just like, I like the idea of we're stupid right now, we want to be smart.
And then also there's this,
but at the same time, the ways that is being used doesn't seem like it's full potential.
And also there's humor to be had here in like the Office Spaces kind of way you could really treat these guys, because a lot of the problems they have solved, I would love to be a fly on the wall to see how they solved it. Because do you remember in the Demonculaba when the new Space Marines pop out and they're missing a very key organ that we all take for granted? You know, the one on the outside that's a barrier from everything else? And I'd love to be a fly in the room as they were going, how much skin do you think we need to cover a Space Marine? Like 5 feet? No.
Grab a Night Lord real quick.
You know, like a Night Lord would know.
How much,
you know,
like
there is
square footage of skin do we need to cover a man?
They solve some stupid questions, and I truly like, how do you treat a weeping sore on a Titan? Because their Titans just have those. That's just a thing.
I would love to have like a series of animated like 12-minute long shorts about these guys where they're done with comedy. I think that would be funny.
There's a lot of angles you could take with them, and sadly,
just sheerly based off of unless the lore gets more fleshed out. If the lore gets more fleshed out, that would be cool. But in their current state, they seem like 12-minute short comedy bits of like, how do we solve this silly, inane, horrifying problem? And
great justification for horrific things. Like, oh, that's terrible. Who thought of that? They did. Okay, cool. Enough said. That's all. Like, just. I suppose that is my main thing. I'd love to see them actually interact more and take a more proactive role. Like, I would love, because these guys consider themselves truly ignorant. I'd love them to see what happens, because they're working on, like, for example, their own bootleg version of biotransference. Have them interact with the Necron.
And figure that out.
That could be very entertaining. I'd love to see them bump into the people who are actually advancing science, the Tau. That could be fun.
Do they know that the Necron used to be people, or...
Oh, the Necron will never let you forget it.
Do they wander into battle going, we used to have skin?
Some of them. I mean, flayed ones.
Flayed ones. But I figure you wouldn't be... For
goodness sake, it's a robot rushing you with Wolverine claws going cold.
You wouldn't be around a flayed one long enough to...
They might.
Remember that.
Demon Engines.
Fair enough.
They just might be. Long enough to observe it anyway and go, Interesting.
You didn't used to be like that.
Weird. But yeah, that does bring an end to this episode. We will see you next week for either the Terminators or the Ecclesiarchy. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and thank you for being you.